Hi, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and it is time for another Serger Club. And this month, I hope you like it. I got the inspiration actually from one of our customers who was tasked with making these banners for their church. And she was convinced that it was on a serger, and after examining the stitches, absolutely. So this project is for those double-sided garden flags, any kind of little window hanging that you might want to do, or even your church or community center banners. Now, one of the things with this, because of the special techniques with the serger, we're going to think of this more as like stained glass or cascading rolling hills or something like that, because some of the more traditional applique type of garden flags and things like that might still need to be done on your sewing machine, but we all know it's good to use all the tools in our toolboxes, right? Okay, so we've got some supplies, we've got some things. Let's look at what we're making and get started. Here we can see our little example of what we're going to be making this month. Now this is reversible satin stitching. And I'm using a interactive presentation deck that if you decide you want a little more information than just what you're watching for free here on our YouTube channel, all you have to do is go to BERNINAofNaperville.com and search for Serger Club, and then you can purchase the additional information for only $15. The project is a reversible satin stitch, but we're going to obtain this by using a narrow 2-thread flatlock stitch to create that reversible look for a garden flag or the window or, like I said, a community center. If you get the presentation deck like you see here, you're also going to get a link to watch this video in case you forgot where it lived. So here's an example of some reversible satin stitching. Over here on the right, you can see that this is more of a traditional flag that's made from the nylon material, and this was done with machine satin stitching. And how do I know that? Well, I happen to know that you can't really create these really detailed curves and peaks and things like that with the method that we're going to be doing today, because with reversible satin stitching done with our flatlock, we kind of need gentle curves and gentle intersections. Like this. So see how this it's going to start with a background piece, and then we're going to build from that, kind of cascading down, making these gentle curves. So this very gentle curve, then we've added another very gentle curve, and then finally a gentle curve at the bottom. So it's important that the fabric that we choose looks as pretty on the front side as on the back, kind of like batik fabric or a solid fabric or something like that. And we have used scraps of 3 colors from our batiks that you can purchase from the link right there at BERNINA of Naperville. With any project, we need small scissors, and then we're going to need some thread that, coordinates with our fabrics. In my inspiration piece, I used orange thread for this embroidery that you see here, as well as the satin stitching. But in the example that I'm going to work through here with you for the demonstration, I used an isocord and variegated that's made up of like purple, blues, and greens. And you're probably also wondering where I got this cute sunshine embroidery design. Well, this is a quilting embroidery design from our friends at OESD, and this is the sunshine motif. You can certainly purchase all of the files. There's about 4 or 5 of them, I think, by clicking our little shopping cart here. And you can see it's 5 designs, all different kinds. There's a pantograph, there's different motifs. I like this one because it was a little bit more open. And put that in your cart, and that's instant gratification for you. And no Serger Club would be complete without a special discount code. And it's off of the L23 foot and the C23 foot. We have links for them right here. But I'd also like to remind you that we are in the midst of an accessory sale from BERNINA where it's buy one, get one for 50% off. So you might also want to take advantage of that. But if you can only afford one of the feet, this discount code will work for the L23 or the C23. We need to talk a little bit about how we're going to set our machine up. So I mentioned that this is done with a 2-thread flatlock narrow seam, and that is stitch number 12. And so this stitch requires that the upper looper converter be engaged, and you're going to use one color through the needle and the same colors through the lower looper. Our needle tension is going to be adjusted to 4.5 because we need to kind of tighten things up a little bit for this application. And I've done a lot of tests with my original piece. I even tried doing a super wide stitch, and it didn't look as good for what I wanted to do. So that's why I landed for this demonstration on the 2-thread flatlock narrow. The lower looper is what you're going to set to 8.5. And we're also going to need to adjust our cutting width to 6.75, and the stitch length needs to be set to 0.8 millimeters. When you make changes to the adjustments of the machine, they present as yellow. So if you look here at our stitch length and our tension adjustments, they're yellow because we changed all of those things. Another thing that I think you should do is save your stitch. So once you make one little test stitch or whatever with this configuration that we picked, the machine is, if you go to pick another stitch, the machine is going to prompt you, do you want to save this? And yes, you do. So all you want to do is after you've stitched your stitch with these configurations, you're going to press your little stitchy button up at the top right corner of the screen, and then you're going to get this prompt. Then you're going to select the green check mark and touch the stitch. Then you're going to name the stitch. I named mine Narrow Satin Stitch. Hit the green check mark, and then just to make sure I told the machine all of the details, I've touched my cutting width little icon right there and adjusted the cutting width to 6.75. Hit the green check mark, and now you have this stitch stored in your machine for future use. All right, so now that we have that taken care of, I just want to point out our little blue path and the upper looper converter. You can see it right here on my screen, but we want to make sure that we engage it because we're only using 2 threads, a lower looper and the right needle. And we're going to thread using our air threading, and then we're going to use the needle threader on our L860 because the L860 and the L850 actually have a built-in needle threader. And then we're going to do a test. Now, here's a reminder that we always want to stitch a test first. We just need 2 pieces of scraps, and we're going to trim just some of the little whiskers away as we feed this through our cutter. But the work should look fairly the same on the front and the bottom. And so let's just make our little test. Start by putting on our L23 in this case, since I'm using my L860, and that's just going to give me a little bit of a shorter piece to manipulate the curves later on. And then I'm just going to have a look at what I stitched to see if I like both sides. Now, as I look at this at the spread, well, it looks very neat and very tidy. But when I turn this over is where the moment of truth, because although it looked really good on that front side, the spread, the back side looks a little loopy. Now, when I stitched this off camera, I actually had my lower looper tension set to like 7, and I have to tighten it to about 8.5. So I had done quite an amount of stitching. So now that I've adjusted my tension, we can fix that little bit there. Now, on further inspection, even though we mentioned that the work should look fairly the same on the front and bottom, there are some small differences, and you can kind of have a look at our piece here that we did as an example. The part where the pieces are placed against each other, I call that the spread. And because when you spread it open, it reveals the stitches. And this is also the neater part of the stitch. The opposite side can sometimes present a little loopy, which is why you saw me increase the tension in the lower looper to 8.5. Sometimes you might need to go even a little bit higher than that. So we want to also just make sure that we can identify the right side from the wrong side. Once you get a piece of scrap that you've just run through straight and you're happy with that, it's going to be time to test some curved piecing. And when I do curved piecing, I'm going to layer 2 pieces of scraps just overlapping each other. And then I'm using my sharp rotary cutter to make a gentle curve. Then I'll remove the scraps, which are the skinny bits, and link the curved pieces together, carrying those over to my machine to do my curved piecing. Now, this is something that kind of requires using both hands. But we're going to start off by attaching our L23 or our C23 foot. Now that foot is special because it's shorter than our standard overlocker foot. And why we want it to be a little bit shorter is because it allows us to maneuver along those curved edges easier than that long foot, which really clamps down for straight seaming. So that's why you're going to put that on. And then as we're sewing our curved pieces, we want to gently keep the raw edges of the curves together as we stitch. And that's what's going to help them kind of lay together nicely. And then when we spread it apart, it's going to be flat. And another thing that we're going to do to carefully prevent any puckering and things like that is we're going to be careful not to over tug or stretch, because we should have cut just a gentle curve. So now I might digress just a little bit, but I embroidered just 1 piece of fabric, no starch, no stabilizer, using one of the square clamp hoops. I used my BERNINA 990, and it's got a lot of special stuff with it. And that is going to be a separate tutorial. So just table this for a moment, and I will make this part of a 990 video. But you could use a double-sided fabric, a double-sided batik. You could do other things than this embroidery design that I chose. So I just wanted to give you that disclaimer in case you were expecting to see how to do the embroidery in our Serger Club video. It's going to be another time, ladies and gentlemen. But once you have picked what your background is or what the top part of your double-sided flag or banner is going to be, then you want to lay out the fabrics and see how it looks together. This is very improvisational, so there are really no rules here, okay? I like to work mine like purple to green to darker green, or however you like. And then just like the rules that I gave you as far as cutting your gentle curves, you're going to do that with your banner. So you're going to lay that first purple piece down, and you're going to gently cut a curve, taking the skinny pieces or the negative pieces away. Bring it over to your serger and sew it together. Spread it open and press. Repeat for the other side, adding the left purple side, cutting the gentle curve, spreading it open, and pressing. Now, in this example that I'm showing you, I always have what I deem to be the right side facing up. And that's because I want all my spread pieces facing up so that my slightly different looking backside of the stitch is all on the backside. When I get to the brighter green, which is the one I put after the purple, I'm going to cut, remove my pieces, take it to the serger, do the stitching, press it, and then go back to the drawing board and add my final piece. And this time I'm doing kind of a little dip curve in it because I think it kind of looks like water a little bit. And then once again, doing that gentle curve piecing using my flat lock stitch. Once I've spread this one open, I've pressed everything flat with the iron, it's time to trim this up. And it's really subjective how big you want to make this. I just kind of centered my sun, cut it a little bit narrow, left extra work at the top so I can make a casing at the top of that cream, and then went back to my L860 serger and changed my stitch this time to a 2-thread wrapped overlock narrow stitch. The only change I did this time is changing the stitch length to 0.8 millimeters. So then I sewed the side and I sewed off, cut the thread, turned it around, sewed the bottom, cut, and repeated. And then at the end of the process, I did use my darning needle to tuck my ends in so that those little serger worms were hidden. Finally, I pressed the casing 1/4 inch over and then another inch over at the top so that I could stitch it on my regular sewing machine with matching thread and place it on my hanger. Now don't forget, you can always sign up for our Serger Club by going to our Bernina of Naperville website, which is berninaofnaperville.com. And there you'll find our Serger Club, and it's $15 if you want the additional tips and tricks and presentation deck and all of that stuff. We also give you some links to some other videos and everything. In fact, I've been working from the presentation deck during this video that you're watching here for free. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you watch more of our tutorials. We are easy to find right here on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville. And there you can like, comment, and subscribe and watch a lot more videos. I think we're over 500 now. Anyway, thank you so much and happy serging.